Let me ask you guys a question. Why is it the guys that are chasing sort of BS hacks, shortcuts, motivation porn, and these massive breakthroughs continue to stay stuck, yet the quiet guy, the disciplined guy, the guy that doesn't talk about it, he's the one that keeps growing and separating from everybody? Or, to put it more precisely, most men don't fail because of a lack of sort of talent or want to. They fail because they underestimate how boring actually works. We all want change, guys. We all want to grow. We all, here for the sort of self-development. But the real growth, it's repetitive. It's unsexy. It's boring. It's stuff you do daily and it compounds. That's the word, guys, compounds. So the men who win, the guys who sort of separate themselves, separate the wheat from the chaff, they're not the ones who are intense once in a while, who show up when they feel like it. They are consistent every single day. Every day, guys. Every day ending in Y. In the boring habits, repeated over time, that is the unfair advantage. Compounding, guys. So, I heard this a long time ago, and it stuck with me my whole life, and I actually learned from this. If you don't understand compound interest or how compounding works, you're going to be doomed by it. And I learned this. I was on the wrong side of compound interest as it relates to debt. And then with my sort of savings, my investments, I got on the right side. Kind of leave it there for now and keep going. So I'm going to, sort of expand on this idea of compounding in sort of masculine terms. Guys, you go to the gym. You're 40, 50 pounds overweight, whatever it is, doesn't matter. And you look in the mirror the next morning, that's not going to change. There's going to be no change in the mirror. Your mind is all over the joint. You do one meditation, that's not going to calm you down. You read 3 pages of a book. No, you're not enlightened, guys. And then one early wake up, you got up at 5 a.m. today. That's not discipline. But now, picture putting 365 of those in a row. Well, now you got something different. And then compounding works, as I said, for pretty much everything in your life. Money, your physical strength, your skills, your confidence, your sort of reputation, and your identity. It all works quietly while compounding. All right, guys, I'm going to give you in this video the 6, if you can see them here, the 6 daily non-negotiables that I do and that you guys need to be doing too if you're looking to sort of separate yourself by compounding. All right, guys, number 1, and I start almost all these off because I really believe this is the core. You need to have physical training. Not exercise, not something you do once in a while. Training that is a non-negotiable. Well, why does this compound? Well, the obvious, it builds muscle and resilience. You become stronger, you become more fit. Guys, an ancillary benefit, and maybe not so ancillary benefit, when you get under heavy weights, when you put your muscles under strain, you are going to increase testosterone. Guys, I won't go into the full, litany of the benefits of testosterone, but watch this video here where I speak more to it in depth. The next point here is it creates visible evidence of discipline. Guys, when you see a fit man, a guy who is in shape, there's only one way he did it, and that's through discipline and putting in the work. Period, end of story. Yes, there are some cheats, and again, we're going to, but for the most part, you see a guy who's fit and in shape, he did it one way. You understand he's disciplined, and that discipline doesn't just generally stay in the gym. And then it raises your baseline energy. Guys, the fact of the matter is, when you exercise, whether it's running, lifting, canoeing, kayaking, mountain climbing, doesn't matter. You feel these energy spikes, and there is a chemical reaction. As I talked about in the last video, your endorphin spike, your dopamine spikes naturally. And the great part about that dopamine spike, it's not this line that you would see from artificial dopamine, but more of and then slow decline. It's a more natural form of it. And then it builds self-respect. When you look in that mirror, there's a person worth respecting. It's a person putting in the work. Guys, when you train daily, it's sort of, it takes away any internal negotiation. This isn't, something you have to think about. It is what you do. It is who you are. And that discipline spills into everything. Like I said, guys, your business, your relationship, your finances. But it all starts with this core of fitness. All right, guys, just think about this. And, I've got some sort of basic guidelines here. So you've got a year of training. You've got a different body. Hell, that might come after, 3 months, 6 months. It's different for everybody, different for how much you're training. 3 years, you have literally a different presence about you. You are somebody that embodies fitness, taking care of yourself, taking pride. And it's not an ego thing, guys. It's taking pride in how the world sees you and how you see yourself. And in 5 years, guys, again, you get a different identity. I can't explain. I've been sort of focused on fitness, I would say a better portion of 25 years now. God, I'm old am I? Yeah, probably 25 years, guys. But you don't look better. You absolutely think differently. All right, guys, number 2 here. 30 minutes of reading gives you and I'm talking deep reading. Grab a book, one like this, or this book. That's a sort of a promo there. But guys, seriously here, it gives you a mental hedge. Stop the scrolling. Not book summaries, not an article on Substack. Those are fine, and I have one of those as well. But actual books, guys, I talked about this in previous videos. Hardcover are the best, probably followed by, if you got an e-reader, Kindle. Lastly, audiobooks, but read, guys. It does little things. Why does this compound? Well, it expands your vocabulary. Guys, you don't need to be a walking thesaurus, but you also don't need to talk like you peaked in the 2nd grade. You learn new words. If you don't know the word in the book, don't just pass it over. Stop. Look on your, look it up. It takes 2 minutes. Deeper thinking, guys, thinking at a different level. It strengthens your focus. Guys, if you can sit down instead of grabbing your phone in the morning and read 10 pages or whatever it is, it's going to help your ability to focus. And again, it builds intellectual and sort of mental sovereignty. Guys, the more you know. Now, you have to apply this knowledge, but you have to accrue the knowledge first. And that starts with reading. So how can we do this? How do we apply this one to our real life? Well, pretty simple. Let's say we read 10 pages a day. 20 would be great, but let's just start with 10. Well, 10 times 365, not real difficult math, guys. That gives you 3,650 pages in a year. Let's just say your average book is 300 pages. Well, that's about 12, 13 books, give or take. It's a lot of books, guys. But again, compound that, keep going. And that's, like I said, 10 to 20 books a year. Let's just do that. Imagine doing that for the next 5 years. You've read 100 books or more. Guys, you are not average anymore. This is when you sort of become, you have presence. You can speak to almost any subject. You have a wide breadth of knowledge. And you can talk in any conversation with some thought. All right, guys, number 3, daily writing or journaling. This is going to help you sort of clear your mind. So most people, not just men, live sort of reactively. And they can never sort of articulate their thoughts. And this goes back to reading. It's going to help you with the articulation. But this writing is going to force a sort of structure to you. And why does this compound? Well, first and foremost, I call it a brain dump. When I journal, usually in the morning, I'm almost always a morning journaler, it clears that mental bullshit. Some people do it at night and try and do that sort of brain dump at night. Doesn't matter, guys. Get it on paper. Get all the garbage out of your head. Again, doesn't have to be structured. Doesn't have to follow grammatical rules. Doesn't matter. But identify patterns in this journaling. What is the stuff you're putting in there consistently? Is it good? Is it bad? Find those patterns out. And it builds self-awareness, guys. It gives you, things that you are thinking about, but now you're putting down. You're like, okay, it's not just thoughts just living in your head. It builds a sort of mental awareness. And then it strengthens your decision making. By putting down patterns and seeing those patterns, guys, you can sort of sharpen your decision making. So if you can't write your thoughts clearly, put them down on paper, then it's going to be difficult to think clearly, guys. And, when you're not clear, you're not focused, it's tough to find a direction. It's, that old analogy, A boat that doesn't have a rudder is just going to float around aimlessly and, it's not going to find its port. I don't know the exact saying, but I think you catch my point there, guys. Same thing here. What's the compounding effect here? Well, 1 page a day. You wrote 1 page a day, and it doesn't have to be a big journal, something like the size of my book, hell, even smaller. That's 365 pages. That's a book in and of itself, guys. Gives you better perspective, gives you better self-mastery. Guys, one thing I will say before ending this point, write it down. Don't type it on the computer. Something about writing, connects it to your brain better. I just think it's a better process. All right, guys, on to number 4 here. Do one thing before 9 a.m. This is a sort of discipline multiplier. Guys, I don't care what it is. When I say hard thing, this is something you don't want to do. It really never gets any better. So for some, that could be a cold shower. Cold. Get in there, guys. Cold drop. Hard workout. Whatever. Get to the gym. Do your run. Whatever. Something hard. A work block. Depends what you want to do here. Do you want to do some writing? Do you want to do your, video creation? Whatever it is, your work block. It could be a regular job. Just knock out an hour or two of just straight work, like Cal Newport talks about deep work. A deep focus session, guys. That could just be thinking, meditation or, sort of thinking. Sit there and focus for an hour, half hour. Sales calls. Guys, I came from the sales world. A lot of guys hate, sort of the cold call, or if they got to make their appointments, whatever it is. Do that first thing, guys. That old term, eat the frog. Do that something shitty when your willpower is at its highest. Grab that phone. Yes, use a phone for sales calls, guys. Don't fucking use, emails that nobody pays attention to. Pick up a phone, call. It's not as bad as you think. Get it done first thing. And then creative output. In the morning, especially if you did work out, you're typically, again, willpower is up, your energy's up. Use that to your benefit. Do your creative stuff in the morning. Okay, guys, why does this one compound? Well, it builds momentum before you ever really start your day. If you're working the 9 to 5, and I know that's a little earlier, typically in the US for most people, but the point is, guys, whether it's 8 or 9, do some shit before your day starts. Again, most guys will wake up and immediately consume. They'll grab their cell phone, they'll start scrolling, consuming this bullshit that they don't need. Instead, the people who get ahead, the sort of winners, they wake up and produce. They create things. They create value. So the compounding sort of layer here, guys, is you're going to train your nervous system to move through the discomfort, not away from it. You know it's coming, and you accept it, and you sort of embrace it. You heard the term from like the Navy SEALs, embrace the suck. And that's truly what it is. You kind of look forward to something you don't want to do. That is going to rewire your thinking. All right, guys, moving on with number 5 here. This is big for, sort of the modern man, this sort of contemporary Western man. Non-negotiables, guys. Got to have these controlled inputs. I'll call these digital boundaries, if you will. No mindless scrolling. Yes, I still do it, guys. This is a very difficult habit to break for almost all of us. Start first by, maybe putting a limit on your social media. I think I talked about this in the last video. Most phones have some sort of, digital monitor. Put that on or delete the app entirely. I know that's hard, guys. I'm going cold turkey but you got to stop that. I don't watch the news. The news. If you do need to do it, again, limit it. But most of the news is just sort of, outrage porn that's meant to get you riled up, whatever side of, you fall, left or right, doesn't matter. And that passive outrage consumption, guys, you know what I'm talking about. Sort of the divisiveness that they want people to buy into. Identity politics, left versus right. And, all this stuff is meant to keep you distracted. Get rid of it. Why does this compound? Well, one, it protects your dopamine. We talked about it. People are looking for these sort of short bursts, little drips of dopamine. That's what this bullshit does. Get away from that. It protects your focus. When you're constantly going through these 30, 60, second little reels, your focus is all over the joint. Get rid of that. And it protects your emotional stability. Guys, when you watch these things, they are meant to create outrage, create vitriol, get you thinking emotionally. Stop watching this shit. And then it protects your worldview. You don't have that same worldview because you're not watching this curated bullshit that the algorithm puts into your feed. It becomes an echo chamber. Get out of that echo chamber, guys. All right. So, guys, your inputs, this is not my words. You've heard something to this, I'm sure, in your life. Your inputs become your thoughts, and your thoughts become your decisions. And then ultimately, those decisions become your life. They become who you are. When garbage, again, guys, garbage in, garbage out. You're putting garbage in your head, garbage is coming out. Don't let that bullshit in. Guys, it's no secret here. A lot of Western guys are sort of checking out. They're eroding. They're sort of weakening. This is blatantly obvious, and I won't get into depth in here. We need you to be slowly growing and building. Again, slowly is okay, guys. Compounding, because it goes like this until it goes like this. Again, over time, that gap becomes absolutely massive. All right, guys, last one here, and this is number 6. Relationship investment. Again, selective sort of brotherhood and or family relationships. So here's one, a daily touch point. And pick, it doesn't have to be the same person every day. It can be. But call your dad, your mom, if they're still alive, sisters, brothers, friends. Text a friend who's on the same mission you, or call them. You don't want somebody who's going to bring you down, and I talked about last video, energy vampires. Get rid of those people. Call people on the same path. Take 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes with your significant other, if you have one. Could be your wife, your husband, your best friend, somebody. Be present with them and just talk for 15 or 20 minutes. Have a real conversation. Not talking about BS. Why does this one compound, guys? Well, it sort of strengthens that bond of loyalty, whether, again, between brother, sister, friends, family. It just builds those bonds. And it builds accountability. You become accountable to each other. You check in with the other. See how the other one's doing. See what's good and bad in their life. It prevents isolation, guys. We are in the social media. You think we're more connected? It's isolating us more than ever before. True human connections. That's why you need to talk on the phone, FaceTime, or in person's even better. And again, it sort of stabilizes your emotional foundation, guys, here. Without these bonds, a lot of people sort of get secluded, aimless, and they just sort of drift. But man, especially when you have a strong brotherhood, guys that are, on the same mission, it builds those bonds. And those bonds ultimately build you up, and they can build your empire. And these relationships are going to protect you during the hard times. Guys, when you don't feel like it, you're down and you're going through a rough patch or shit period, those bonds with brothers, those are what pull you through. That's why it's so important. I know what society wants to divide men. We need to come together. And this stability will allow for long-term growth. So guys, tying this all together here. So most guys are terribly inconsistent. We just passed, what is it, a month and a half now at the first of the year, and everybody was gung-ho about, resolutions and the new year, new me bullshit. You have to be consistent. Stack these daily small wins. Compound, guys. Like I said, training, reading, writing, journaling. Get up, get past that early discomfort. Control your inputs, what you allow into your head, and build those relationships. So think about this, guys. Here's a compounding, tying it all together. So 365 days in a year, talking about 6 behaviors. That's 2,190 disciplined actions in one fucking year. That's a lot, guys. That's, it may seem small. Every day you're not going to notice these. But over the course of a year, 5 years, 10 years, you will absolutely separate yourself from the pack. Look, guys, you don't need more, again, as I said in the beginning, more motivation porn, more BS videos on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, somebody to motivate you for 10 minutes. What you need is structure, systems, and processes that you can stick to every single day. You don't need this sort of hyped up, machismo, bullshit flex intensity. You simply need repetition and consistency. That's all, guys. Show up every single day. We don't need this singular breakthrough. And maybe that does come, but that comes from putting the work in every single day. Guys, one of the things you need to do, and this is if you're going to take away anything from this video, you need to absolutely embrace the boring and the mundane. The bullshit that you need to do every single day, you don't always want to do, but you do it no matter what. Because boring compounds, and compound interest wins every single fucking time. Guys, the world's going to sell you the quick wins, the get rich quick, the viral hacks, and the sort of overnight success. They never give you the backstory. They never show you the bullshit that people went through. They only show you, the wins. They show you that success porn because that's what sells. But you want real freedom, you want real sovereignty. It's built, in your quiet office, the quiet gym, early morning workouts, books that you've read, that unseen, that unsexy discipline. Guys, after 5 or 10 years, when you really start to separate yourself, people will give you the, oh, must be nice. Oh, must be, your good fortune or you're lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it, guys. You compounded. The old Louis Pasteur, chance favors the prepared mind, or, the harder I work, the luckier I get. These sayings have validity. Guys, if you have found value in this video, don't stop watching here. Watch this one because it's a perfect follow-up to this video. As usual, guys, drop comments, like, subscribe, forward this on to people you think could benefit from you. Guys, I appreciate you always, and remember, live deliberately.